I'll provide the invocation today. Heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon this community and its citizens. Help us to act in a manner that meets with your approval. Help us to make the decisions that we need that benefit the entire community, and give us the wisdom to ferret out the facts and the options and do the work on behalf of the citizens in the best manner possible, the most effective, the most productive way. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
First item on the agenda is to consider the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at those? If there are no corrections or comments, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make the motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Contractors' reports. Tom?
Good afternoon. I'll refer to page 1 on our section of this large packet and talk about some of our active programs. We've got some new projects on there. The first project, Blue Braveheart, actually I think we're going to pull. There's a couple of things that didn't qualify us after the first round for that. Would have been a nice one. As you can see, it had a large spending cap on it, and I don't know, it had 500 plus jobs, but that one doesn't look like we're in the running for that anymore. Project Faldry is something they finally got their application in. Yeah, I think I've mentioned to y'all before that one of the hardest items is to get their application in, whatever company it is. This is actually a combination expansion and relocation for a local company. They have a presence in both Odessa and Midland, and they would be moving a number of jobs from Midland over here, also creating new jobs due to their growth. And like I said, they did get this last week a application into us. We were hoping it would be soon enough to have it for this meeting, but it's not. There's 2 or 3 items that, with regards to their records, that they did not provide, and that was just an oversight on their part. And hopefully today or tomorrow we will receive those, and you will have that application in front of you for what month are we in? The September meeting. So, but that's 10 to 15. Actually, talking to him the other day and what he put on his application, probably more than that, probably closer to 20 to 40 new jobs. And a little higher CapEx, maybe 5 to 6 million. So it's a nice little project for the community. Project Sunrise Mountain is something we got from the governor's office. We've submitted the information they requested. We haven't heard back anything, which is not uncommon. They usually don't tell you anything until if you've made the next round, they'll let you know. If you didn't make the next round, you have to call them later and find out. Project Ophelia, that's moving along. We actually had a meeting with them Friday morning. That's $150 million CapEx. Small job, but right now in our current situation, that's not necessarily a bad thing with that large of an investment. Project Lithium, they actually may be in town. We're trying to agree on a date for them to come to town late September, early October. I was sent 2 dates this morning. One of them doesn't work for what we have going on, but I think we're going to eventually agree to something, and they will be here just like in about a month or so. As you can see from that one, it's a large employer, $1 billion plus capital expenditure. One of the first questions they ask us is workforce. And when I mentioned, well, we're tight, you try to keep it as simple as possible. The fortunate thing is, there have been times when we're tight and everybody else is not. But right now we're tight and so is everybody else. So that kind of helps stay in the game with a company that's going to employ that many people. And so, like I said, they have a bit of a local connection from a few years ago to Odessa, and that's what helped start the process and get the conversation going, and it's still going today. And we probably talk once a week, so that's a pretty good one. Project Rocket, I wish that was. It's moving on their end, but not on ours because they won't get us an application. That's another one. Every time I call them, it's either in front of the attorneys or he left it at home that day or whatever. But we don't have their application yet. We keep moving forward. They may, who knows, we may let them get up and going, and we just don't have to provide them anything because they continue down that road as far as development of this project. They just haven't gotten an application to us. And it would be 225 new jobs to Midland. They have a to Odessa. They have a presence in Midland right now of about 100 jobs that they would keep there in the facility they're in. And then the 225, it would be new jobs on a different end, more towards manufacturing, that would be on the Odessa end. Project Frost, I'll probably stop at that one because these are the ones that are really kind of in motion right now. But Project Frost, I was actually on the phone with them today. They had some things that on their agreement with Odessa College for abatement. They've applied for abatement from the various taxing entities, not the city, but out in the county because they're on the west end of the county. This is an expansion. There were some things that they added at the very last minute to their agreement that was too late because the packet had already gone out to the OC board. And I tried to explain to them they operate their meetings just like ODC does under the Texas Open Meetings Act. And once a packet goes out and you have wording in there, you can't come back in and it's already been posted to the public and change that wording. And so they understand that now, and we've talked to Odessa College, and the hope is that they will have everything finished and finalized and OC's approval before their September meeting. And so this group already has an agreement signed and completed with the county, so it's moving along. This is one out there, GCC, that would be $400 to $500 million expansion and modernization, and not a big job generator again. Maybe 10, but a large capital investment that would make this kind of their showpiece facility. So we're pushing that along. It seems like a lot of the projects now, that's what we're doing. We're just kind of pushing them along. With that, you'll see later on, I believe, some of our partner visits we did this month, and then some information on business retention and expansion. And I'll be happy with that to answer any questions you may have. None? Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you, and pray for more rain.
Amen. Craig?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a busy month for ODC and CVA. While our television golf schedules are starting to wind down as the season comes to a conclusion, our outdoor still continues to run, but we've had a lot of activity with print materials this month. We've done a full-page ad that was designed and placed in the Odessa Community and Guide that focuses on businesses that have come to Odessa or expanded in Odessa and the results of ODC. And these guides are sent out not only to people here in Odessa, but people that are looking at coming into Odessa, possibly considering relocating to Odessa. And a sample of that's in your packet. We also did a half-page ad in the Texas edition of Business Facilities. That ad is also in your packet for you to take a look at. Newspaper-wise, we are on a Post-it note that became available through the Chamber in digital ads in the Odessa American. Those samples are also attached. I hope some of you have been out to the airport more recently and seen the new backlit Duratrans promoting Odessa in the baggage pickup area. That's a joint effort between Discover Odessa, the CVB, and the Economic Development Department. And that's there at the carousel with information about how to find out how to expand or move to Odessa. Also, across the social media platforms, we're up across the board like we were last month. But I will tell you, the report that is in your packet next month will be in the chamber packet for economic development, since Lindsay Simpkins has taken over that responsibility. And we'll be aiding her and giving her those reports to check up on. So that's my report, unless there's some questions. Okay,
Any questions?
very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Chris, Black Chamber?
Good afternoon to everybody. We're going to make this short and brief. The Black Chamber, we've been very, very fortunate this last couple of months. We've saw an increase in all of our media activity, all of our Facebook page, our office visits, our phone, our emails. Everything has been pretty much up. The points that we really wanted to emphasize is that we had a young man from here in Odessa. He is trying to move his business from his home. He is trying to establish a brick and mortar. He has a clothing line. He's in business now. He would like to do more inventory, and he came to us, and we're in the process of helping him to the point that he can get him a standalone store for this. He has a shoe distributor. He has his own brand of shoes as well. So he's to the point that he's maxed out where he's located. So we're in the process. So we may eventually partner with the Odessa Chamber to see if we can kind of help move him along, and with the help of the SBDC, we can help him as well. We had another gentleman that he's been in the oil field for 32 years. He has a food service as well. He is in the process of dressing out his food wagon. He eventually, within a year, would like to have a restaurant, a standalone. Most of them are in the process of where they're too small, and they just need pointing the direction. So a lot of this we're sending to the SBDC. We're working and probably going to turn to Renee and the Odessa Chamber to kind of help them along. We were able to do a ribbon cutting on a new barber college that we have here that is located off of Dixie. They're in the process that they would like a larger facility within a year. So they had asked about eventually applying for some monies that are out there. So we're trying to get them pointed in the right direction as well. We were able to assist a young lady that has acquired some property, and she was trying to develop this. And we've been working with her to find out exactly how it's zoned, what it's for, and what she can basically put on it. We're contacted by a company out of Gainesville, Georgia. They do fire retardant clothing, and this is something that we would probably have to team up with some other companies with, and maybe even reach out to Wes with Nacero, companies that use this type of equipment. So we met with him and told him that we would help him find, a distributor for his product. So this is kind of how our activity has gone. Pretty much, we've had a lot of little small mom and pop companies reach out to us, and they're in the process of basically trying to get bigger and trying to get finance. We're in the process. We handed out our scholarships from our golf tournament. 50% of those will be attending Odessa College, and another 3 of the students will be attending UTPB. So they'll be local. We're in the process of getting ready to do our Ebony Bar Wars, which is our annual banquet for the Black Chamber. So pretty much that'll bring you up to speed. So, and plus I forgot my eyes and I can't read my notes. So, so any questions, be willing to answer.
Any questions for Chris?
Thank you.
Chris.
Good report.
And Tyler is not here. He's out of town. We do have his report. I guess we could ask if anybody has any questions regarding his report. All right, and then James Motran.
Over the last month, or well, I guess this past month we're in, we did have our meeting with TCEQ and area officials talking about the EPA notice published on air quality standards here in the Permian Basin. I know Mr. Robinson was able to come to that, so we had a good discussion there, and I think that was a helpful process in us looking at how we go forward with this. They've taken the stance of sort of a formalized hearing process, but we don't know ultimately if they'll follow through with that because it's a discretionary designation. So what we're in the process of doing, and have spent a lot of time this past month on, is putting together comments back on that. And part of the reason for that is we have a lot of people that are writing a lot of letters and sending things into the EPA that are very political in nature, and I certainly understand that. And personally, I kind of think it is a political witch hunt. But for EPA purposes, when you respond to this sort of thing, it has to be a little bit more scientific than that. And so we spent a lot of time going around collecting air quality samples, and you know, if you want to see the village idiot, that's what I look like standing out there with my little orange thing. We got a lot of interesting responses as we traveled around the Permian Basin. I started just telling people, because either other than trying to explain what I was actually doing, that I had to keep blowing in the machine until I got a low enough blood alcohol content that the car would start. And people seemed to be fine with that, oddly enough, better than the other option. What I did find, though, as we went through here, is we have very low levels. In fact, Ector County, Odessa, tied for #1 in the lowest levels. Your composite score was 12, which was really good when we looked at that, as opposed to 70 parts per billion. And the highest level that we got to here, as they fluctuate over 10-second intervals, was about 24. So it was actually very good, far below that level. What we did find is that those New Mexico testing sites are all in close proximity to dairy facilities. Dairy facilities, and the dairy sludge that comes off that produces a large amount of nitrogen, methane as well, but nitrogen, particularly in evaporation, which is what combines with VOx in the air to create ozone. So we think that's probably part of the reason that you see those elevated levels up there as opposed to here. Literally, for a while, we kind of wondered if we were just, well, I say that, I wondered if I was an idiot and just didn't know how to operate the testing machine. But we spent a lot of time on this. So we think that's a good thing, and ultimately that's the stuff that we'll put forward. I realize that seems kind of odd for us to be talking a bunch about air quality, but we do think it's an important issue, because ultimately at the end of the day it won't shut anything down, but it does make things a lot more expensive and a lot more burdensome going forward. So we think that is an important endeavor. That being said, upcoming, we'll be hosting out here on October 4th the House Energy Committee's interim hearing. And prior to that, on September 15th, we're hosting Permian Basin 101, which is an educational series for Texas legislative staffers in the Texas House and the Texas Senate leading up to the legislative session. We again have the legislative program of wanting to pass the GROW legislation so that we have a consistent and repetitive funding cycle and funding stream for the Permian Basin for years to come. So that's my report.
James, I have one question. Can you, 'cause I know it's been a little while since I looked at the detail on it with the plan, our local plan, MPO plan, and certainly all the projects that we're supporting, on our list in our general development plan. Tell me a little bit about what you see and the connectivity associated with proposed work in Midland County and Ector County with regard to Yukon.
Well, it's your lucky day because Chris Cole has been asking so many questions that I keep my book loaded up with all these projects so that I can answer them. I think probably earlier this year, and I don't know when it was, maybe it was in March, we gave you an update on UConn. And what I would tell you since then, I mean, we've had the first part of that, which is from FM 1788 back over to 191, which is a project by Midland County. Is kind of back on schedule. That was targeted originally to be let last year, and it got off because of some right-of-way issues, but it's back on target. I anticipate it will be completed no later than December of this year. I think at this point we might be looking at November. The cost on that project was originally $3.1 million. It actually came in and was funded at $6.3 million. That cost went up quite a bit. And I say that because I've seen some of the things here lately, and there was some questions about why y'all do projects in Midland County. And, you know, but I do think that is a good thing that they put a lot of money into that project. They used county road grant funds for that, that came back from the state, which primarily had been used for maintenance deals. But this was one where we tried to go a little bit bigger and better. And frankly, from their perspective, it's a great investment because if you look at that area off of the airport and south of 191, as these roadways have developed out there, and several of them have been built by developers, you've seen a lot of those metal buildings go in out there. Those metal buildings are tax-based, but the other thing that's good about that is, you know, the cities for a long time have really tried to discourage all those industrial fronts right out there on 191. And so that's given them some places to go and ways to get there. And so, of course, it's good for everybody's tax base there. But as I said, that project is looking like it'll be finished at the end of this year. I believe the portion of where you're looking at the Yukon and 191 overpass, that one's going to stretch way on out there. Probably looking sometime in 2024 that's completed. Originally, we thought that was going to be about a 36-month project, but I think it's going to stretch on out there. The contractors out here are all pretty thin and having to move people around. I will tell you that project was originally an estimate of $18.56 million, and it let out at $27.5 million. So that's that project moving forward. And then the portion of it that connects back up to existing UConn, which is led by your private developer, I think that portion will also kind of match up with the Midland County portion. It'll be finished probably in November to December. And the cost that I have on that is $2.8 million. Now, I know that's paid for by the developer. I believe they have an agreement with the city of Odessa where there's some cost sharing on that. And I don't know what the break on that is, who's how much, what have you. But those are kind of the three projects there in that area. We are updating a map of landowners for UConn between West Loop 338 and going back over to 1936. The long-range plan for the city of Odessa actually shows that connecting all the way over to 302. I don't know if that's 100% doable. There's a large tank battery location that would prohibit that unless you're going to go around it. But the portion between West Loop 338 and 1936 is kind of there. It's already driven. It's a de facto road that people just drive across today. The landowners changed on that. Originally it was probably going to be about 3 landowners, and one of them had the majority of it. I believe they've sold that out. So we're trying to update that list because I think at some point that's a good project for Ector County that they could pick up. But of course the problem is detailing what landowners they've got to talk to and trying to see if they can get that right away donated. So that would make that a lot easier. And I'll say this, most of the projects where we go in and talk to our private landowners about donating right away most of them are pretty amenable to that.
Well, does it make sense to say that with the pending development of Nacero, and certainly related industrial projects out there. And the industrial area that you talked about that fronts on 191 and certainly has some depth to the north. Does it make sense that Yukon would be, I don't know if it's a major thoroughfare, but I guess a major east-west thoroughfare to carry some of that traffic from that area, just because of the connection to West Odessa and West Ector County?
Part of the reason that I like the Yukon project is, number one, is because there's a lot of different entities involved, so there's a lot of pieces and parts,
Yeah.
and that kind of makes it fun, break stuff. Originally, about five years ago, there was a study done to see if Yukon would be an amenable way to divert traffic off of 42nd Street, and looking at that as long-term for development, that sort of thing. And what that showed at the time was it was not. It was about a 9% diversion factor. And for road and highway purposes, a 9% diversion is not really considered very significant. As you looked at the traffic on 42nd Street, you have little pockets of traffic. It's not really through traffic. That's what I always would have thought of 42nd Street. It's little pockets of traffic, little patterns. But at the same time, 42nd Street is one of the 300 most congested roadways in the state of Texas. It's the single most congested roadway that we have in this area, in this part of, well, frankly, this side of I-35. And the honest answer is, even though 9% is not a huge diversion factor, what else are you going to do about 42nd Street? I mean, literally, what else do you do? Do you double deck it? I mean, I'd love to see that, but I mean, keep in mind there's no highway project that I don't like. So, big things fly over, woo! But the real question, we're probably never going to divert a significant amount of traffic off of Yukon. Probably the real value in Yukon ultimately is having another place to move development to, because you can't keep developing on 42nd Street. Well, I guess maybe we can double deck the stores, the mall, something like that. But you know what I'm saying. Realistically, it gives you areas to push out. And from an engineering perspective, if you ever really put it in simplistic terms, as you grow and expand over the time, back then you may have needed this number of north-south streets and this number of east-west, and you're going to need more if you grow. And some places have been able to grow in advance. Unfortunately, our economics and people's lack of faith and long-term in the Permian Basin, talking about it from a TxDOT perspective, even a couple years ago when things kind of started turning down, they were like, yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. And we're trying to say, look, over the long term, we're going to continue to grow. Well, we'll see about that. So it's always kind of retarded investment there. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of benefit to Yukon. All of these roads have a role. And again, it depends on what you're looking at. Yukon is an interesting roadway because there are industrial aspects of it, but there are also residential areas on there. One thing that I think will also be coming up, I know, I guess I can say, I would keep it generic. You've got a new shopping center, and probably most of you already know about it, that's going to go and be a large shopping center there on Yukon. And part of that developer is paying for part of the roadway improvements out there and to rebuild an intersection. So now you'll have that aspect, a huge retail development out there. And so there's just a lot of pieces and parts to it. And again, it kind of goes back to at some point we filled up these areas, so we got to move out here and build new areas.
Yeah. Okay, that helps. Any other questions for James?
I kind of got a question, just to make sure I understand. You mentioned portions of Yukon, and I'm looking at it on maps, so it's not. I'm trying to get my bearings right. Portions
You want
of
to get
that-
medieval, don't you? It's all right, I'm ready.
Very.
I got a map too.
Now, portions of it's in Midland County. Where at? Is it once it crosses 191?
Actually, part of it above 191 still in Midland County. I'm not sure exactly where the demarcation line is there. Since we tore down the Iron Curtain, you know. But it's just north of 191. The entire portion that's south of 191 is all in Midland County. But part of that that's south of 191, I think, is Marrero still here? There's a little portion of that that's actually in the city of Odessa. I don't know, it's not maybe a mile or less.
It's only less than a mile, it's in the city limits, but in Midland County.
Yeah.
But the northern side of that is what, Mr. Marrero?
Perhaps it might be easier if I show you guys a map.
Yes.
Yeah, and I noticed, I don't know why you didn't tell him to come up to it.
Little man that's prepared.
Hey, Michael,
Yes, sir.
normally, you're told to come up to the microphone, and since you're the boss, they didn't direct you to the microphone.
I'm working to solve your problem this time. By the way, these maps are pretty spectacular if you're ever looking for stuff.
I'm impressed.
I'm impressed you can work it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I would be.
Michael can do a lot of things.
You will see this, sorry. You see, I don't know if you can see the county line there, Mr. Cole?
Okay, yes, sir.
This is the portion along Yukon. West of that, obviously, is Lecter County. On the east side of that is Midland County.
Okay.
And this is that small portion in here that's along Yukon that is in Midland County, but within the city limits of Odessa.
Okay.
So the red dotted line is the city line.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
so,
Okay, thanks.
You got it?
Yes.
And just as a note on that, Mr. Cole, if you look at that, the Midland County portion is being built as a 2-lane county road, has improved shoulders, but it's not the normal, the standard that the city of Odessa prefers is a 5-lane, it's 4-lane with center turn lane, curbs and gutters. And of course, Midland County doesn't want to build curbs and gutters to do that, but the right-of-way acquisition, I think, included the entire 130-foot footprint for that continuity ultimately at some point, so. But the main thing is to get that right-of-way secure, to get that footprint put in there, so that, you know, we've seen this a lot of times where all of a sudden the tank battery pops up or disposal location, and, yeah, you can't build that road anymore, so. But like I said, there you go.
Okay, thanks, James. Okay, is Larry here? No, we got Cindy.
Good afternoon. On the financial statements for June for ODC, we have a total assets of $65.3 million. We have very little in AP, $145,000. You will notice in the fund balance section, we went ahead and reduced the assigned for the workforce housing infrastructure down to the $70,000. That was, it wasn't done in June, but we went ahead and reflected it on this financial so we wouldn't be confusing anyone. So our unreserved balance is $26.2 million. On the next page, you'll see the actual for the month, revenues and expenditures. We made the last payment on the contracts for the quarter, and so that'll take you through their budgeted numbers. We had excess revenue over expenditures of $7.1 million. There wasn't any payments out during the month of June for any of the grants. We do weekly updates with Weaver on their compliance. They've got FMC, Select, Cage, Apergy, and Nacero all in process at this time. So they're working on those, gathering information from the companies and working through those. So hopefully by the September meeting we have some of those reports in hand. you can see the investment portfolio. We did not purchase any new investments during the month of June. We are seeing some slow increases in interest rates, so that's a benefit. For the month of August, the sales tax collections for ODC was $1,131,000. This is an increase of $51,000 over August of 21. On a fiscal year-to-date basis for the 11 months, our total is $11,037,810.85, and so we're already met our budget of $9.5 million, and so what we get this last month will just be extra above that. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Cindy?
Yes.
Okay.
You're shocked, aren't you?
No.
Okay. So first question was, you said that there weren't any investment purchases, yet the report reflects we purchased $704,256 in municipal bonds, and we purchased $8,004,958 in the government pool.
Well, what that is, and I apologize. I'm reading Larry's notes. He said none, so I should have ignored his notes. So yeah, there does look like we bought one. In addition, the purchase amount is just the movement from savings and money markets into the government pools. If you'll see down below, the $7 million coming out of here and going up to the.
So let me ask you this, a couple of things, because we've got a total purchase amount of $8,709,214, but we got sales and withdrawal amounts of $8,115,271. That's a difference of $593,943, and I can't figure out where it came from or where it went.
Well, we took in $1 million in sales tax, and we paid out. Looks like we paid out $363,000 in expenditures for the month.
Well, we took in $1,066,534 total in sales tax plus interest income, but then we had a gain and loss of $29,636.
Right.
To get your $1,036,000, but even when you factor in that $1,036,000 into it, if you total the $593,943 difference plus the $410,985, which is another question I have, that's still $1,004,928, which is still way short of our $1,036,000. That number doesn't match. And so in addition to that, on the first part of the statement of revenues and expenses, you show total expenses of $363,065, and yet we pulled $410,985 out of government pools. Those two don't match.
Well, it could be that we're making, there could be that we're making payments for something that was accrued. I would just have to follow that up to make sure, but we could be making payments on something that was accrued. And so we're paying it out now, but it was accrued as an expense into the prior month.
Okay.
But I'll be glad to work through that with you.
Would it be possible for me just to get a basic cash flow analysis down to the transaction level?
I can ask Larry to work on something with you. We typically don't do a cash flow analysis every month, but I mean, we reconcile cash every month, yes.
I'm just trying to make the numbers match, and going back, and I just did you see where my discrepancies are coming from?
I see what you're saying, yes, but I would have to look back to see what was accrued or not accrued as expenditures.
So, but if it was accrued, wouldn't it still show up as an expense being paid out?
If it was accrued, it would have been expensed in the prior month and paid out in the current month. So we could have the same thing with revenues as well. So.
Okay, that still kind of doesn't make sense, but okay.
Well, it's a balance sheet change as opposed to an income statement reflection.
But we can look at that with you if you want to. Larry he's gone next week as well, and we can sit down and go there with you.
Okay.
Okay. The investments we bought, the municipal bonds, were showing purchase amount of $704,256. And I'm not sure what the time frame was, but it shows, I'm assuming we purchased those, since it's $704,256, we purchased those bonds at a premium?
Yes.
Okay, so the yield that we're reporting on those bonds was 3.12%. You know, is that a gross yield or a net yield since we purchased those at a premium?
I think this should be the gross yield is what he's reporting, I believe.
Okay.
But I can check with him.
But you guys, I'd rather see a net yield because that gives us a truer picture of what we're getting versus gross. But then, so on those, we showed that purchase of $704,256, but when we come down and look at our investment portfolio, on the end of month, we're showing, of course, the par value of $700,000, but if you look at the fair value, it's $700,105. Is that a difference in timing between, because when on the prior report, it shows, of course, they're at a deficit value of $29,636, but yet on the end of month report, it shows basically the fair value is $105 above par value.
Yeah, but the $29,000 has to do with all of the municipal securities, so it'd be all of them, not just the one. It's municipal bonds,
Gotcha.
it's the total.
Okay, okay. I thought it was just that purchase note. Okay,
No,
that explains that.
it
Thank you.
would be all of them.
Okay, I think that answers my questions for now.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for Cindy?
Make a motion, we accept the financial statement as read.
I'll second.
Have a motion, second, to accept the financial report as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, let's see. Casey, the Icon Tavern request?
Good afternoon, Board. How are you?
Good.
I am here to present a request for an extension on Icon Tavern. Icon Tavern is experiencing issues with electricity and some contractor issues. They're having problems getting people into the shop to do the construction. And so they are requesting a 6-month extension from their current deadline, which is September 29th. I am not super familiar with construction, so Mr. Bradley Marquez is here. He's one of the owners, and then John Harridge is here. He is their contractor advisor. So if you guys have questions, they're here to help me.
It sounded, I mean, from what I saw, it seemed like one of your biggest challenges was getting Encore to do the work, and I think that's kind of been the norm for the last probably couple of years or so. Anybody have any questions with regard to this request?
I will say they have been in constant contact with me. We keep touch base pretty often. Anytime that they have any issues or it seems like something they've hit a wall, my office has been there to help them, and they've been very communicative with us to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand what's happening. Whenever we talked about coming for an extension, we talked about, is there any way to avoid that? What could we do to speed it up? But because of the problems with the Encore issue, I believe it's now resolved. Now they're going into the supply chain issues. I know that they were working on ordering their kitchen equipment, and that's been really pushed back. And so they're very confident that it'll be done before the 6 months, but they're asking for a 6 month just because they were confident when they asked for the 3 month, and we're not there yet. So we just want to avoid having to continue to come back to you guys.
Make a motion, we accept and allow the 6 month.
Chris has a question.
That's not necessarily a question. I need to abstain from this.
Okay.
I abstain from the Bristol, need to abstain from this one as well.
Okay.
And I'll abstain as well.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the extended time. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye,
I
if
abstain.
necessary. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. We've got consider responses to marketing and compliance consultant request for proposals. Cindy?
Yes, I've tried to email all of them out. We had problems emailing out one of the marketing ones. I'm hoping all of y'all got everything except that one. You have a physical copy in front of you. On the compliance proposal RFP, we only received 2 responses, one from Weaver, who's our current provider, and one from Axiom Capital Partners. They are not a CPA firm. I don't know that any of their people are CPAs, which has been kind of traditional as to what was requested. I know when we first started using Weaver, that was one of the things the board wanted, was somebody that was a CPA firm, somebody that was experienced in doing work like this. We contacted all the vendors that had either, we had sent a proposal to directly, an RFP, or that had called and asked for one. So we made calls to all of these people. We left a message with 4 of them. No one responded. We got several not interested in working on governmental accounts, not enough time, small staff, outside their scope. So if y'all have looked at those, you will see that currently our current contract with Weaver says that they'll be billing per report up to $5,000. In their proposal, they raised it to $6,000, and the proposed amount that came through on Axiom, again, I'm not sure they really understood what we were asking for or what it entails. They gave a total dollar amount of $2,426 to do all 10 of them annually. So I'm not sure that's a...
Not 2 million.
No, I'm sorry, 2,000. 2,420. Thank you, Melanie. So that works out to about $242 per grant. So I'm not thinking they're really in line with what we were seeking. So I don't know if y'all want to form a committee to review those, or if you want to spend the time in the meeting to discuss. Our contract with Weaver ends September 30th, except any jobs that they are in the process of, we were asking them to continue and finish.
When we sent out the request for RFP, did we, the ones that you send it to, how many of those actually have experience doing auditing for economic development or municipalities?
I don't know that any of them did. We sent it to Whitney Penn, which is a large firm in this area that does governmental audits. They obviously do compliance consulting. They did not respond. Ron Kirby, Randy Silhan, Shelton Air Smith, Armstrong Backus and Company is a pretty large firm. They have an office in Midland. Fisher Moore and Company, Carr, Riggs and Ingram, KWCO, PC, Germer and Company CPAs, and Emblem Strategies LLC. So,
you know, I'm sitting here thinking about your question, Chris. I'm not sure how relevant it would be for a contractor to be experienced in compliance auditing for economic development purposes. It's basically, are they complying with the contract? I think that's pretty simple. I mean, it's kind of pretty simple and straightforward. You know, are the jobs there, and is the payroll there? Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but I you know, I think any firm that's done any auditing of any kind would probably have the capability to do it, in my mind.
Yeah, I don't know that it's specific to economic development.
Yeah.
I mean,
Does that go along the same route then? I mean, do we need to have a CPA do it for that same thought? I mean, just in, what, 30 minutes of us looking at that one project, we only found about a dozen errors Weaver had in that last compliance audit, and I'm far from CPA.
Yeah,
We
well,
want somebody who knows, who has the ability and the know-how to tie the numbers that are reported back to the 941 filings and things like that. I mean, I think it needs to be somebody with
If it's not rocket
some
science.
knowledge.
no.
I mean, obviously, I mean, there's a huge difference in pricing here,
Yeah, I'm not,
but I don't necessarily think that should be a detraction.
no,
Well,
but,
it doesn't seem reasonable. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it kind of doesn't pass the,
I would like to, and sit down personally and have a conversation with these folks about that one thing of, you know, hey, it's, you know, love your pricing, but, you know, why is it what it is? And
Assure us that they can do it for that.
exactly.
well,
I mean, it's been how many years since this has been put out for bid? Probably don't tell how many years before it comes up for bid again, so let's do our due diligence. And
would someone like to join Mr. Crowe on a small task force?
No.
I'm so loved.
Oh, it ain't
oh,
you.
it's not about that.
It ain't that. I don't have time for that.
No, I understand.
When would we need to have,
I can help anything.
I'd be happy to help with it. I have a couple of kind of heavy deadlines I'm dealing with right now, but, yeah, I'd be
Well, we're
happy to-
operating on a month-to-month until the end of the month.
no,
If
I
we don't-
think
if
our
we don't
current
execute the-
contract's through September 30th of 2022,
Yeah.
with the understanding they would finish any of them that were in process.
So,
Okay.
make sure I understand though. So Chris, you're wanting to have a sit down with Axiom to see if they can actually do this at this price.
Well, not only just that, just to explain, you know, really talk to them about what's required of our auditors and, you know, kind of talk about where their pricing came from. Because it looks to me like when I went through proposals, they're figuring a certain number of hours to do that, and they're basically going by their billable hours. As opposed to just saying, okay, we're gonna charge $6,000 to do this. This made more sense to me, and that they said, okay, we think it's gonna take 3.4 hours times our hourly rate.
I'm not sure that that hour estimate's reasonable either.
And it may not be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for total, not per,
No, I get it.
okay. So your question, are you familiar with a firm that does economic development compliance auditing?
No,
I didn't know if maybe you had somebody in mind.
I did not. I was just curious if we had, you know, done some research before we just sent them out to accounting firms.
Hey, Mr. Muncy, what is your opinion? Because see, that's where I lean towards. I don't have time to do what y'all's paying job is, and so.
Well, I will tell you that Weaver is following a protocol for consulting services that CPA firms have to follow. I mean, they're reviewed every 3 years under, they have to have other auditors review them. So I know that they're doing that. I think, and that comes at a cost. I mean, obviously. This firm did not indicate in any form or fashion they were CPAs, had any CPAs on staff, so they don't have to follow the same guidelines, okay? Is that something you want? Do you want someone that doesn't have any real guidelines as to how they perform these consulting services for you? I mean, one of the problems why we went to a CPA firm in the first place is we weren't comfortable with what was being done by the internal auditor.
Right.
And that position is not filled at this point either. So that's not an option, but I mean, it's the level of comfort you want to get from it. And, yeah, I understand there's been issues with Weaver. I wish we had gotten another CPA firm to propose on it. And all in all, you can reject them, and we can try to reach out to some. I don't know who we reach out to, I know that we have a hard time hiring accountants, so I'm sure CPA firms do too. I think it's just a matter of workload with a lot of them.
So this particular company, did y'all do any further research on them? Because I'm trying to find it on the internet, and I can't really figure
Axiom?
just this. This is what you got?
No, I mean, we didn't do any additional research on them. You know, they obviously got onto our website or somehow got word of the RFP, because we did not send a RFP straight to them, no.
Well, I
'Cause
guess-
we only sent to CPA
I
firms.
guess the question is it somewhat of a mute exercise? Because are you hoping, Chris, that you're going to find out that they're so much better than what RSM McGladrey is, or it is RSM McGladrey Weaver?
It's Weaver.
Sorry, that's mine.
No, not at all. I mean, I think we've got a really good idea of Weaver and the job they've done because we've used them for years. But I mean, I personally I put a price on a conversation that I have with the company when I'm reviewing. If I'm going to hire a company for my business, you know, I'm not just going to take a pamphlet that they send me and go through it and hire or not hire a company based on that. I want to have a conversation with them and say, and we've had conversations with Weaver. We know those guys. I just want to extend this kind of the same thing to them and say, okay, tell me about your firm. You know, you guys are not CPAs. You know, tell me how you think you can do this. They've seen what we need, and I think they've done a good job of kind of laying that out. But you know, explain to me your pricing model. Explain to me your experience and your background. I would just feel a lot better. I'm very comfortable with Weaver, and that I know it. We've used them for years. Other than this brochure, I don't know anything about these guys, and I think it would behoove us to sit down with them and just have a conversation, since these are the only two that threw it in.
My
And Mr.
preference
Kirk and I
would
are
be
more
to
than
talk-
happy to do that.
Yeah, my preference would be to talk to both groups.
We can do that too.
Just because,
Yeah.
I mean, because
No problem
my
with that at all.
personal preference would be somebody who has a license that's, you know, where we know what their standards are supposed to be. Even if there have been times when we've gotten back work with errors, we know what the accountability level is. I want some, you know, I'd like to know more about that.
It's a mute exercise for me, but I'm not committing to do it. But my next question is, are we doing the same thing from the marketing standpoint as well?
Well, we'll address that in a minute.
No, I'm just asking. Because we're somewhat setting precedents, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I will tell you that I'm in favor of sending the marketing proposals to the advertising committee and have the advertising committee
Report back.
make a recommendation to us. So I think it fits with what we're talking about doing here. But on this issue, and I think when you interview Weaver, I think you would ask them why the increase. Explain,
Well,
walk through the increase.
And my other recommendation with that would be is somewhat of a negotiable deal. You know, you take a smaller company and where there's not, you've already met the investment, so it's just a matter of doing payroll and making sure they have the insurance, then I don't know that should be $6,000 for a report.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they're doing an investment, say for Nacero, which has, I can't tell you how many line items of detail there is to Nacero, that, you know, that one makes sense that it's higher. I think there is a negotiation to be made that, you know, there should be lower amounts for some of these that are repeat, especially, you know, third, fourth year, if there hasn't been any issues prior. Most of the contracts are 5 years. I think Nacero's 10, but most of them are 3 to 5 years. So
Okay, I'm gonna appoint Jay and Chris and Melanie, if possible, to
That, Chris.
this Chris. Appointed this way. To task force or subcommittee, whatever you want to call it, to interview and review those proposals, come back to us with a recommendation. And
next-
now with regard to the marketing,
to the marketing and
yeah,
advertising.
I think we should direct the proposals. We just got one of them a few minutes ago, so there's no way we can make a decision on it anyway.
Right.
I think it's proper to go through the advertising committee, have those folks review, interview those, the proposers if necessary, and bring back a recommendation to our board to
Would it be possible for me to sit in on that? I would love to.
Sure.
I think I'd get a lot of questions
Sure.
answered and save you guys a lot of time and
Sure,
energy. if I
absolutely.
Sit in
Just
on
make
that.
sure
Is
we
it
don't have
making,
a quorum.
yes, make sure it's not a quorum. So what do we
That's
got on that?
4. It is a quorum.
Second.
It'd be a quorum.
Yeah, because it could be
Yes, there's
Chris
3
Cole,
on the
James Kirk, and
advertising.
Tim Edgman.
But Tim, I'm all for Chris going and I stay and do some work.
Well, I can do it. James, but you're saying you're,
I'll let him,
Got the other-
if he
yeah,
wants.
that's fine.
Okay.
I see now.
He's gonna give up
Both
here.
Chris's show up, we got a
We're
quorum.
switching the Chris's.
You're welcome, Chris. You pay the late.
Man, I got work to do.
Okay, so then we'd have one substitution on the advertising committee, and that's fine. Chris Crowe for Chris Cole.
Excellent.
Does that answer all of your questions, Cindy, everything that you need to do?
Yes, I was just gonna let y'all know that we had a response back from Red Pixel and cmnerds.com as to that they could not make a proposal on the marketing. I just wanted to make y'all aware of that.
Okay. All right, the next order of business is consider the general development plan. We've discussed this, we've looked at it. Does anybody have any issues? We added some items to it. I think we modified a little bit of language, very little. But it matches up with, I think, the consensus at the time, last time we looked at it.
I was hoping to see like a red line copy of this. I was trying to figure out what all was added. I was trying to go back and forth between them, and it looked like maybe some of the Perryman stuff, or I mean, did we add any new sectors or anything that differs from the?
Yeah, the one item would be, at my request, we added, let me find the exact language.
And can we do that?
The bottom of page 1.
Yeah, it says implement and or collaborate on messaging program for oil and gas. We added that.
No, I mean, do we add any NAICS codes or anything? Okay, that's what I was kind of trying to figure out. So does that implement and or collaborate on our messaging program for oil and gas, does that go in line with our Permian Fuels America?
No,
Is that the thought?
it actually goes in line with the potential for us to collaborate with Midland and PSP to put together some kind of messaging towards legislators and voters. That this came out of the fly-in, the Washington fly-in, where we Representative Pfluger had requested that we, or Congressman Pfluger had requested that they could use some help with regard to offsetting a lot of disinformation out there with regard to oil and gas, how clean or not clean, uses and all that kind of stuff and give some of his, the congressman that he was working with, particularly on those on the other side of the aisle that may be more moderate, giving them a little bit of ammunition to be able to support oil and gas, regulatory issues. And then same thing with voters potentially on the, that are, maybe more left-leaning, moderate and whatnot, to convince them. So we haven't decided to do anything. We just put this item in here because we ought to be pursuing it. There's nothing been decided on it. It's just a task on the list.
Okay.
Need a motion to accept that? I'll
Yeah.
make a motion to accept it.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the general development plan. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we also now have the contractor agreements, and I have a couple of questions, but I think Chris has already left and Tyler's not here. The questions that I have are, in their contracts, it calls for financial reporting. And I don't think they've been providing us any financial reporting. Is that right, Cindy? The Black Chamber or the SBDC? I just want to make sure that they know that these contracts call for that, and then we're going to expect it.
I think James is the only one that we get financials from each month, isn't it?
Well, we get financials from the chamber.
From Chambers, yes, sorry.
So, I mean, and I think it's appropriate that we do, and it demonstrates how they spent the money. So,
I think we should get the same financial reporting for everybody.
Since UTPB is not here, I'm not sure how they break out SBDC in their financial reporting, so they would have to probably do some, I don't know if they have a departmental report. It's not been anything that's ever been requested from them. Typically, in the past, the smaller amounts that y'all were doing didn't request those as well. I'm just giving history.
anybody have any objections to that requirement?
I think we need
No,
to.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So we can, I believe we can approve these agreements, and then if there's any pushback or any questions or whatnot, then we may get it in some kind of negotiable situation, but at this point, those were the only questions that I had. Just want to make sure that those contractors understand they have the obligation to do it when they sign, if they execute that contract, they're obligated to provide it.
You need a motion to approve? Make a motion to
Well,
approve.
question,
Oh,
does that include, just because it's blank here, a contract for Permian Fuels America?
No.
Permian Fuels America's not a contractor.
They were listed.
It was, I think it was put in there separately because we didn't, at the time, we didn't know whether or not we were gonna include that with the marketing or not. In the past, that's been with CBA. And so because of that, marketing is not in place yet until the RFPs are reviewed and someone's chosen.
Jay, I'm going to interpret your motion to approve the contracts for the Chamber, the Odessa Chamber Economic Development Department, Motran, the Black Chamber of Commerce, and the SBDC.
Yes.
Those four
And
contracts.
the city.
And what?
In the city.
For administrative
And the city,
services.
correct.
Thank you.
And the city.
Yep. Have a
Oh, yeah.
motion?
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve those 5 contracts as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, Cindy, the budget.
You should have received a copy of the proposed budget in your packet. There have been a couple of changes made. We actually renewed the officers and directors liability insurance in August. That premium came in at $18,696. So I made that change to the budget from $18,500 so that it just matches up with the renewal. I also made the change where we took $75,000 out of special services and put that at 0, added it to the infrastructure grants, and I increased the line item for audit and compliance services. As you can tell by the 2021 actual, we've spent $57,577, so I wasn't sure that $45,000 budget would cover that expenditure, especially since to date we're above that amount. So I raised it to $60,000. That can be changed upon y'all's desire. The amounts that the contractors turned in are still the same. The only one that's in question, I think, is the marketing. It's got a placeholder of $600,000. We can leave it at that, and we can amend the budget once someone is selected for the marketing. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions regarding the proposed budget?
Motion to approve.
Hey, just one real quick question, and it's
Okay.
really minor. So the investment income
Yeah.
is, am I reading this right, that we think it's gonna be down 70?
Yes, I mean, our net income this year hasn't reached 80,000 yet, so I was being conservative with the
Okay.
interest income.
It's not that big of a deal, I just was curious, make
Okay.
sure I'm reading correctly.
I mean, we can, if y'all feel confident we can get up there, then we can change
Well,
this.
I mean, I'm surprised Chris isn't saying anything about this, but, you know, you talk about we're in a favorable rate environment as far
We
as
are.
securities are concerned, so I would expect that the interest income would be a little bit more.
And it could go up, so we could
But-
make that change.
But this is a wild guess anyway, so it's no biggie.
I'd be in agreement with you, Chris.
Do you wanna leave it or increase it? You know, take it back up to 100,000?
It's cosmetics, so, I mean, at the end of the day, really just a
Just
question.
leave it.
Okay,
Second.
okay.
Could we have a
I motion.
motion, second? Have a motion and a second to approve the budget as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Partnership didn't meet. Tax incentive didn't meet. Compliance, have anything? Advertising.
They're gonna
Will
meet.
will be meeting.
We will.
Let us know when.
And then the downtown grants design. Don't think there's anything there. Okay, we're down to item 10, citizen comments on non-agenda items. Are there any citizens who'd like to comment on non-agenda items? All right, hearing none, we'll pass to consider the date of the next board meeting. Tried to put this on there so we wouldn't be moving the date. And the date for the next meeting is scheduled to be, somebody,
September 9th, is that correct? September 9th, I believe.
That's a Friday.
that seems,
Is it a Friday?
Eighth is
I vote on the eighth.
eighth is a Thursday.
8th is a Thursday?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's the second Thursday, yep.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
I get out of here.
all right, and let's,
Is that pretty firm?
yeah, I think
It's
so.
not usually.
Yeah, I think
It's a moving target.
It's firm today.
firm today, yeah. Well, I tell you, if anybody has any issues that they discover when they get back to your office or whatever, tomorrow, just as soon as possible, confirm that. Otherwise, it's gonna stay at September 8th. Have no other business, then we're adjourned at 3:14.
Thank you all.
We've been bouncing that meeting around every month. Bouncing around every month, and I had 2 hours. The staff didn't do it.
oh, Crow.